Hi, this is Jeremy Pope. I'm the author of the Sales Call Overhaul newsletter and host of the podcast by the same name. And in my episode for the Business Growth Architect show, I will share how to give your salespeople confidence in your offer. And if you listen to the end, you'll hear my price up front technique for solo founders and solopreneurs.
Welcome to the Business Growth Architect Show. I am Beate Chelette. I am the host. I want to welcome you to our globally top 10% ranked podcast, where you will hear from industry experts about the strategies that are working right now to unlock hidden opportunities in any market so that you can grow your authority and scale your impact. And now let's get started with the show. And welcome back. This is your host, Beate Chelette from the Business Growth Architect Show. And with me today is Jeremy Pope from the Sales Call Overhaul. And as you probably have a hint, we're going to talk about sales calls, sales call overhauls, and a whole bunch of stuff. Jeremy, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Thank you for
I have been excited to come on this show for 3 months now? I've been so excited about this. We had such a good time last time we talked. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us, what does somebody do who does a sales call overhaul?
Well, an overhaulic is someone who is focused on continually improving their sales calls or the sales calls for their teams. It's kind of a play on the a sales call overhaulic. We introduce ourselves sometimes with, "Hi, I'm Jeremy, and I am an overhaulic." So like the 12-step programs.
An overhaulic?
Right. I am dealing with some workaholism right now, but I'm getting a handle on that. But the overhaulic, I don't have to deal with that because it's fun. It's the idea that there's always significant improvements that can be made. It's not, a lot of people, they reach a certain point, a la Josh Kaufman, and in his book, The First 20 Hours, he talks about, okay, how much can you learn? How good can you get in 20 hours of practice versus it takes 10,000 hours to be world-class expert level at something like Olympic level or grandmaster chess player, things like that. That's the 10,000 hours that a lot of people turn into. It takes 10,000 hours to be an expert. No, that's not true. Don't worry about it. But what can we do in the first 20 hours? And a lot of us, we stall out very quickly and we reach that asymptotic curve where we're never going to go beyond this point because we don't have the motivation to do that. But there are always significant improvements that can be made if we're willing to look at our systems properly. And Eli Goldratt talks about that a lot in his book, The Choice. And I'm a big fan of Goldratt.
Thank you for that. So I think that there's three things that need to be looked at when we're a business owner. Number one is the piece where we are looking at the offer that we're creating, the sales calls, and getting the sales process in place. And then number three is to really get clear on how we're going to scale that part of the business. I have identified something that I call what did you call it? The feast and something?
Oh, the feast and famine cycle?
The feast and famine cycle. Tell us about that, because I bet that 90% of people you talk to have that problem.
Well, before you reach certain economies of scale, it's very likely to be occurring. And it's almost unavoidable when you're a solopreneur. But once you get a team in place, getting the team in place is how to solve this issue in large part. One person only has so much attention that they can spare. If that's the founder or the CEO, whatever you want to call yourself in the business, then you've got 40 hours a week or 80 hours a week if you're nuts. And then you're out, you're done. So there are certain tasks that must be completed in order to move the needle in the business. You can't boil water at 150 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't even know the Celsius. Sorry. You can't boil water at 50 degrees Celsius either. It has to be at 100 degrees Celsius. So there's a certain amount of activity that has to happen in client acquisition, the sales and marketing side. And there's a certain amount of activity that has to happen in order to fulfill on a client. And so as long as you as the founder are jumping back and forth between those two, it is very likely that you're creating a feast and famine cycle for yourself. Now, this also happens when there's teams involved, but it's because the founder has not learned to manage a sales team effectively yet. They haven't learned how to manage a marketer effectively yet. They haven't learned how to manage a fulfillment team effectively yet, and only go focus on, like, for the task part, only go focus on the part that's within their zone of genius, like the why I started the business in the first place part. And then they can delegate effectively on the other parts. So I care deeply when I'm doing business coaching about effective delegation. And Christopher Jones, with his 4 steps of delegation and the 4 phases of maturity in delegation, I draw heavily on his stuff around those things. I found them tremendously helpful.
I love that advice. A lot of my clients is that, and I actually think, Jeremy, that a lot of this is an internet marketing trap, is that keeps you in that perpetual desire to be and do more. So if I only knew how to do this and this and this and this, if I only knew how to do the product launch, if I only knew how to do the funnel hacking, if I only knew how to write the proper copy, if I only knew how to do the sales calls, if I only knew how to close better, if I only knew. And so I am now running around in a perpetual desire state of needing to do and want more, but I can't.
This is a maturity issue in the leader, like a personal emotional maturity issue in the leader. And it requires growth to grow out of that. And some people never do. And that I've heard so many people talk about the number one reason that small companies don't scale is client acquisition or undercapitalization, or, some other thing that expert tends to specialize in, or they're an author around that topic, or something like that. Everybody's got their pet thing, but maturity covers all of it. If you're not mature enough to lead in the ways that your people need you to lead, you cannot scale, period. You will never get yourself past the hard things where you can scale. So it affects all those areas. Like, if you're not mature enough to figure out how to fundraise, how to recognize when you need funding versus you can bootstrap it, okay, you're going to fail. But it's a recognition issue. It's a flagging issue. It's a perceptional maturity issue there. And that's one of the reasons that folks like you are so tremendously helpful in providing strategy and providing clarity around half of a business, is because, and I know you know a lot more than half, but your business focuses on the acquisition end of things. And it's amazing because you can point out, you've seen patterns that the client doesn't see. They're inside one business. You're inside 50 businesses or 1,200 businesses over the last 4 years, or whatever the numbers are. But you've been able to see these patterns over and over and over, and you can help them see when they are stuck mentally. And honestly, I find that 70% of the coaching that I do, it goes back to the beliefs someone has. 70%. It is astounding how much of it goes back to the mindset of the founder. There's a saying that fish rot from the head down, right? And the head of the company, it matters. I mean, anytime there's something rotten in my company, it's me. It's me. I've done something wrong that rotted something else. And so we've talked about that before as well. We've both been very transparent and vulnerable with each other about this stuff. And we have to address that in some very brave ways. And it's hard. But that's what it comes down to. I don't know if I answered the question. Did I?
No,
that was a long answer.
I actually liked where you took that, because you took it back to what we know is the number one issue. It's like, get the heck out of your own way.
Yeah,
and
very much.
When we talk about sales, I think that there's nothing more important than to get out of your way. Since we had our first conversation, I have now brought on a sales team.
Woo.
And my God, let's just say the heart palpitation. And I mean, the first week, as I was changing my own mental pattern on how I thought about that, I was miserable. I was so stressed out, so anxious, because it was, and I had to overcome all these feelings. And logically, I'm sitting there, I'm like, what are you doing? But emotionally, it's like, obviously you're an absolute failure because you can close all the sales training that you've done, done better. And your follow-up sucks, and your emails don't have the open rates. And suddenly my subconscious volunteers and vomits everything I've ever done wrong in my entire life in sales on me in a week. But I know it's the right thing to do. So I know how to push through it. But like with everything in business, when you make a change, you have to put the money down, because that's the cycle of change. Is you make the decision, the money doesn't show up, so you can make the decision. You have to make the decision so that the money can show up.
I needed that reminder. Thank you. That is useful right now. Thank you. Yeah.
I think a lot of people really are in this position
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
if I'm super honest. So
I think any high growth whether it's emotional growth or whether it's business growth, I mean, my argument is that they are the same thing and they cannot be separated. But when you're in high growth, you're always going to have those decisions that require an act of faith. You're never going to have complete data. You're never going to be able to predict what happens with 100% certainty. And so being able to make decisions confidently and then de-risk them appropriately, or de-risk them first, hopefully, and then make the decision confidently. It's such a huge part of it.
100%. And this is about scaling the business, and you cannot scale yourself. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about something else that I can completely obsess about by myself in my head.
Okay.
The offer.
Oh,
what goes wrong in an offer? We probably could have like 6 shows just about that. In your experience, what are the most frequently made mistakes, or the single biggest frequently made mistake when making an offer?
Inventing your avatar instead of discovering your avatar. It's so unsexy to go and do market research. It's so unsexy to dig the ditches, I call it, like ditch digging. There's nothing sexy about market research. Some people, it's fun. I like it personally, so I'm very lucky in that respect. But like having those interviews with people and going out and looking at Amazon, I don't like that part. I like interviewing people, but looking at Amazon and seeing what competitors' books, what 3-star reviews say their books leave out, and all the different ways of market research that you have available to you. If you invent your ideal client avatar, they're not a person. If you discover your ideal client avatar, you've got real people who really need your thing. So it starts with, I think avatar is inseparable from offer in some pretty fundamental ways. It's not the same thing. It's just inseparable from it. That's the part that, Beate, I've coached hundreds and hundreds of business owners, and probably half of them are in the coaching or expert space. And I don't know, probably my first couple of hundred where I really got into every element of their offer was at a company called Traffic and Funnels. This was back in 2016. So I was their first client success director. And we went through so many people's offers and their funnels and all that kind of stuff. And everybody, me included, I mean, everybody does this at first. You try and invent an offer for an invented avatar, and it doesn't hit. I mean, it's a 1 in 1,000 if the offer hits because you just guessed correctly, but that's just pulling on the arm of a slot machine, you know? So making sure that you actually know that people want your offer, it's not hard. People treat it like it's a mystical thing, but it's a very mechanical series of actions. It's very unsexy. You get sweaty mentally doing it. It's work, but it sets you up to have an 80% hit rate on your offer when you're done, a 90% hit rate on your offer. It's very simple. So that's my biggest frustration. It's frustrating because I did not start stressing that sooner in my career. I didn't start stressing it hard enough sooner in my career for my earlier clients. It's a huge deal.
We actually, in the 5-Star Success Blueprint, this is the exact first step of my entire system. And it's called Airtight Avatar. You can get it at airtightavatar.com. We've made it so all you have to do is like do check marks, right? But I think what you just said is so important. Don't invent it. It's got to be kind of like a real person. So of course you say that, because that is the number one step of everything. Without knowing who this person is and what problem they're having, I cannot solve that problem.
If you want to solve imaginary people's problems, you will get paid in imaginary money. That's what it comes down to.
Bingo. So now I've done this. I have been, I've listened, I've done my avatar. Now I figured out, I asked these people, they told me the problems that they're having. And the problems, that's just for the sake of what we know everybody's problem is. I need to find more clients. I need to close better. I need to make more money so I can pay my people, take some time off, and have a life. So now I am creating my offer. Is there anything I need to know about my offer, as into don't overcomplicate it?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I was kind of dreading this question because I almost hit it differently for every client I go with. on StrengthsFinder, my highest strength is individualization. And so it's so hard for me to make rules around a lot of these things.
They already love you now that you said that, because everybody who's listening to this goes like, yeah, I like the guy because he's finally told me that I'm not like anybody else.
So one of the things that I found is with overcomplication. So the guarantee, for one, gets overcomplicated a lot of times, or undercomplicated, or it's just useless, a vestigial organ, an unnecessary tail on the offer, or it's counterproductive even. But in not overcomplicating your offer, an offer is not the deliverables. And that took me a long time to get my head around. And I have to remind myself of that pretty frequently. This is not something that I'm super good at remembering personally. So I have to lean on other people for those things. But when you're making an offer, I always say founder fuel runs dirty, or that founders make dirty deals. And so there's a VC, a venture capitalist that I read, that talks about selling on a whiteboard versus selling on PowerPoint versus selling in a PDF. And he's talking about like the stages of the maturity of the product. Like, okay, we know we're going to talk about these things at this point. We're selling in a PDF. We can send it out to everybody, and that's what we got. But at first you're selling on a whiteboard. And so founders make dirty deals because we're here to make anything happen. We're here to not be at zero. That's our part as a founder, is to not be at zero. And so we make anything happen. And it's very messy. We throw off a lot of pollution. It's like running bunker fuel for a cargo ship, but far away from shore. But as we scale things up and we hire a team, in particular, sales team, they have to sell clean deals, or they're going to overwhelm. Like when you're scaling, you're going to overwhelm your fulfillment team. When you are scaling up a sales team in particular, it could be any team, but a sales team in particular, you're about to flood your fulfillment department if things go 60% as planned on the sales side of things. You have to be selling clean deals. So this offer needs to be clean. And you need to have done the spade work beforehand to get to the point where you can do a clean offer. Now, a lot of times what that looks like is you have to have, it's almost like a project management thing where you have to have the project brief so that your people understand what they're delivering on. I have a discussion internally before I start selling something new. If it calls on my people in any way, then I'm going to talk with them before we even offer it and say, okay, should we offer this, or is this overreaching? The offer itself has to become scalable. The offer itself has to be deliverables that are simple, and it can't be custom every time. This is the time to productize the offer, is when you are starting to overwhelm your fulfillment team. Think MVP, minimum viable product, or minimum viable offer, however you want to say that, minimum viable service. What's the stripped back, scaled down, teensy weensy version of this offer that gives 80% of the value? So 80-20.
100%. I think that is, also, in my opinion, a very, very big mistake. Let's talk about the sales call right after this message. Are you looking for the hidden opportunities for you in this market? Or are you simply wanting to figure out what is your unique differentiation factor that makes clients want to work with you and not your competitors? If this resonates, I want to invite you to go to uncoverysession.com and schedule your 15-minute complimentary uncovery session with one of our business growth advisors that will take you through what your number one business growth blocker is, what you can do to remove it, and what your very best next step should be. And now let's get back to the show. We have, Jeremy, gone through some big pointers when it comes to offer sales, finding the right avatar, not creating stuff for imaginary people. So now we are at a point where we have the avatar, we have the offer, we stripped all the stuff from the offer that is unnecessary, that just pollutes the message. We have removed the 5,000 hours of online courses that we've created 10 years ago that we gave it a bonus that people don't want or need. And now we are making sales calls. How quickly should I start scaling up and handing my sales calls to a sales team? At
precisely the speed of confidence.
Interesting answer. Talk to me
There,
about that. So
okay.
if as somebody who's just done this,
Mhm.
it is an audacious and scary step.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, it is the only step if you want to get above the couple 100,000 to a
Yeah.
much larger
Yes.
business and operation.
Mm.
Because in my opinion, a good business owner, if they're in the burnout formula, they do about 1 million. They can
Oh,
do
I
that by
like
themselves.
that. The burnout formula. Oh, that's fantastic.
It is
Mm.
they get to 1 million.
I think it is
Anything
too.
above 1
Yeah.
million on their own is you're dead, basically. You're killing yourself. Now, do I have to get to that, or can I do this more elegantly sooner?
You can do it more elegantly sooner. Honestly, I don't know if there's any part of business growth that really can be elegant the first time around. It's just
Sooner, yes,
dirty and
elegant. No,
sweaty.
it's messy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so messy. The third time around, the third time you do it, it can be elegant at that point. Then you can
Yeah.
make it look effortless. But yeah, don't worry about making it look elegant or anything like that at first. When I speak of the speed of confidence, I'm not talking about your confidence as a business owner. I'm talking about the salesperson's confidence. They have to be so confident in the offer. They have to believe in this 100%. I have spoken to so many number one performers and asked them, because I've done a fair amount of recruiting. We do a little bit of that right now, but I've done a lot in the past. And there is one thing that comes up with top performing salespeople, that it's always the first thing they say, not the second thing they say. And so when I ask them, so what type of offers do you like to work on, when I'm trying to figure out who I could place them with, and they will answer with something almost word for word, like, well, it has to be an offer that I believe in. I'm like, huh. Well, I was thinking more like industry. Well, like what industries do you want to work in? Do you like solar, or do you like coaching, or do you like this or that? And they always start with, well, something that I can believe in. And they need to believe 100% in your company, in you, and your stability as a founder, like someone who's going to be true to your integrity. It's about integrity. Are there cracks in the system? Are there cracks in the person? Are there cracks in the offer, etc.? And they have to believe 100% in the offer. Flood your salesperson with testimonials. Flood your salesperson with proof. Flood your salesperson with success after success after success internally. Find ways to break out those successes, the same ways that we talk about testimonials in our worse than useless product. Like there are testimonials like too many of, boy, Beate sure is nice. Like you put 6 of those on your sales page and they're going to drive down your conversion rate, because everybody's going to look at that and go, that's all we got. Like, show me the money testimonials. Like she helped us succeed kind of thing.
Yes.
And so it's the same thing with this. I mean, we teach how to break out testimonials and make a bunch of mini testimonials instead of one big one that nobody's going to read the whole thing. So it's the same thing with your salespeople. Just constantly reinforce. Yukai Chao, in his book, Actionable Gamification Beyond Points, Badges, and Leaderboards, talks about the 8 core drivers of human motivation. And he is good. He is, in my opinion, the top gamification expert in the world, which makes him pretty close to the top motivation at scale expert in the world. And he's just so good. But the ownership that you need your salespeople to have is so high. The level of autonomy that you need them to be able to exercise is so high. They need to be able to have and to feel like they have complete authority, whether to make a deal or not in this. And so if they're always feeling stepped on, or, well, why didn't you make that deal? And they look at their qualification sheet and they go, well, they're missing 2 of the 4 qualifications you gave me. What am I supposed to do? Like the instant recipe for failure. Your high performers are going to leave. Your low performers are going to stay because they're used to being abused. And this is a form of abuse, like giving someone mixed signals in writing versus voice, or in writing versus tone, or in policy versus attitude. Mixed signals, that kind of gaslighting. Only the people who are used to being abused will stick around for it. And so you have that Dead Sea effect. All the good people leave, they evaporate, and the water gets saltier and saltier and saltier. And so when you have a salesperson who can be 100% confident in you, they can be 100% confident in your offer, and in your company and the results you get for the clients, in your trust in them as a salesperson to make the right decisions as you train and as you coach and as you hold accountable and et cetera. I'm not saying leave any of those out, but trust in them that they are the right person for the job. That's just enormous for a salesperson. And the other piece, the fourth piece, cannot be left out. When they trust the lead generation and disqualification system, that's enormous. When they do not understand how they're going to get leads, when they do not understand, I don't know what the process is here. I don't know if I'm getting anyone qualified to talk to. Like, I'm a salesperson. I'm not a marketing company in a box. That, I would say, is probably the biggest danger at the $200K a year level rather than the $1 million a year level, is hiring people to try and cover too many roles instead of, look, okay, we've got the lead gen dialed in. Okay, we've got the funnel and the conversion dialed in. We've got the indoctrination or the warm-up parts of the funnel dialed in. We've got the disqualification elements firm. We have strong opinions about it. We're in integrity about not accepting
everybody
bad fit sales calls as well as bad fit clients. We are not a high pressure organization that is going to try and get people in just to get their first couple of payments, and then we know they're going to drop, or we're willing to accept that they're going to drop as a founder because it's cash through the door. I can make payroll. Like, that's not the situation to hire a salesperson from. But when your salesperson can trust your systems, they can trust themselves. And that confidence lets them become an elite athlete in your system. Like, they know what the rules of the game are. They know what the other players are going to do. They know what the plays are. They know. Just give them confidence, and you will make huge strides quickly in your sales organization.
I absolutely love that. I compare it to, you pick a wild horse, and then you're going to have to let that horse run. You're just going to have to direct where to, and give sort of the parameters. So my questions as I'm building this up is always like, what do you need from me to do this?
Yep.
And then when they say, I need this and that, then I can say, well, we already have a system for that. We need to be using this system, or I can, because then I can kind of redirect. But what I'm hearing you say is that I have to, as a business owner, when I look at sales, I'm really bringing somebody in who I believe is better than I am at this. So I have to get out of their way and not stifle them or not terrorize them.
I agree with the actions to be taken there. I don't think I'm saying that. There are a lot of times when it's time to hire a salesperson when they definitely can't do it better than you can. You might be an amazing salesperson, and you might be able to feel your way through the sales call with some skills that you cannot expect someone else to have. And that's okay too. But a sales department is an awful lot better at selling than you are as one person. It might not be that the first person can close better than you can, but it frees you up to do the stuff that you need to do. That was a hard lesson for me to learn, honestly, was when I'm good at something, I still might have to let go of that. That's tricky. And if it helps, we might be thinking different thoughts in our heads about better than I am about that. Like, you might be doing a very different construct in your head. And if that's useful to you, go for it. Absolutely. That's not the way I build it, but it will definitely be better than you staying on it, for sure. Whether or not this one person is better at the skill set than you are.
I want to ask you one more question, because I think that then we can wrap it up really nicely. So now I come to you, I have all these pieces, and I say to you, something needs to be better. I need to optimize this. So now you're helping me to overhaul that. Just take us through the process.
Sure. We've got a couple of different processes. One is for putting the recruiting systems in place for getting your sales team built. So the sales team build out process, we call it our STAT sales team A day. It's a power day structure. And in that, we do look at the offer, but we're mainly just vetting for, is the offer working already? I just won't accept someone into that where the offer isn't working. When you have a sales team already, then we coach sales teams, certainly. And we also coach solo founders a fair amount of the time. Our sales call overhaul process is that process. So for a solo founder who is not yet quite ready to hire a sales team, the sales call overhaul process, this is the one where we say, we put a sure thing, no bets guarantee on it. Raise your close rate by 50% in 3 calls flat by following our instructions, or we'll send you from anywhere in the continental US to Vegas for 2 nights with your spouse. We are very sure of this. There's no gambling involved in getting the foundations right. It's a mechanical thing. It's not mystical. You don't have to guess at maybe I've got it, maybe I don't, maybe it's Maybelline kind of stuff. There's right. So there's a mechanical element here. That's why I use the engine room. That's why I call it overhauls, is because it really is, it can be mechanical. There's a lot of psychology that can be mechanical, and you can relax into it and let the system do the heavy lifting. So one of the systems of thinking that we use around this is zero pressure selling. In a romantic relationship, there is tension. There must be romantic tension. In a sexual relationship, there must be sexual tension. But when we take that and we flip it and we say, in a romantic relationship, is there pressure? Like, no, there is not. We call that harassment. In a sexual relationship, is there pressure? No, we call that molestation and rape. We have words for these things. These are universally bad things. And so we can build tension in a relationship without being high pressure about it. And there's a very simple mindset that people can go away with around this. And when you are feeling pressured around something, be open about that thing. For instance, my price up front technique, I will often say something along the lines of like, or whatever it is that's bugging me at the moment, anything that I'm feeling a little hung up on, I'll just expose it to the prospect at the beginning of the call. Hey, I'm feeling a little bit weird about money right now. Maybe I didn't sleep long enough, but do you mind if I just tell you what the price is right now at minute 4 of this call, and then we can spend the next 40 minutes figuring out if this really is a fit and if the value really is there? And then they'll say yes. They never say no. And you go, okay, it's $18,000. All right. Now I can relax. Do you need to scream or make faces or mute yourself for a minute to curse at me? Like, is that even in range? If we can find the value, if this really does solve your problem, is that in range? And then they'll tell you yes, no, or maybe. And if they say yes, you are 60% closed, done at minute 4 of the call.
Wow.
Yay. Boy, that took a lot of pressure off, didn't it? And so now you're collaboratively problem solving. If they say maybe, you know you have a price objection in there that you're going to have to deal with. And so you say, okay, well, let's talk about how we might be able to be flexible around that price, or if there's anything that we can do as part of our discussion. So they know you're going to address it together. They know you're going to problem solve together, and that you're not going to ambush them with the scorpion sting at the end of the call, 3 minutes to the end, and decide. Like, this is not about pressure. And if they say no, then they should have been disqualified. Like, the same people who run away at the end of the call are the ones who run away at the beginning of the call, but you saved yourself 40 minutes.
I think this is a good spot to end the interview on, or to wrap it up on, because what you just given us now is this really clear idea to say I don't think internet marketing in the classic traditional sense, how the Dan Kennedys of the world have invented it, is working as well as it has anymore. I think people are running away, like somebody's after them, if they even smell that you're going down the ethical persuasion road, right?
It's become its own buzzword, hasn't it?
That I threw up in my mouth just saying that. So I like the idea to say, look, we're here on a call because we're here to see if it's a good fit. I do this for a living, so there's a price attached to it. Here's the price.
And getting the commitment in as part of that statement, it takes less than a minute to do the whole price upfront technique. But you say, if I tell you the price, will you stick with me and figure out if the value's there? And then you get that commitment, and then you tell them the price, and then you ask them again, will you stick with me? You get another commitment. And so it's not even micro commitments. It's 2 big commitments right there. So that's what makes it work, instead of just picking up the phone or getting on Zoom and going, all right, it's $18,000. Okay, now let's talk. The commitment, they have a piece to play in that. They have a part to play in that.
I think that's the fear, and that's the confidence you were talking about, is that you're going to have that confidence where you say, look, it's really good. Shall we talk about this and how this can help you? So now we don't have this whole anxiety built up, and then, well, that sounds really good, but awkward pause. How much is it?
Yep.
Right. So I love that.
At the beginning of all your sales calls, do you know that someone, if they want to buy, that they're going to want to know the price?
Everybody's going to want to know the price.
Of course. Everyone
How much
wants
is it?
to know the price. Yeah.
Yes. And then tell me what's included and what's involved. And then I'm going to make the decision.
We can activate the mysteries of our expertise at any time, but within an existing structure. A structure is not a prison cell. It's a home that you can venture out from.
Not a prison cell. I am going to use that. Systems are not a prison cell. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I had to learn that so hard over so many years and so many times, because I get so defiant and resistant around overstructuring due to my ADHD. And so I have to remind myself constantly, it's not a prison cell. It's a home. It's a living room.
I love that.
It's my kitchen. I do certain things in the kitchen and certain things in the living room, etc. Yeah.
Wonderful. So for anybody who's now listened to this all the way to the end and says, my God, the guy is the God of sales, where do we send him? What do you have for them?
First of all, change your opinion, because I'm a pretty average salesperson with some really good mental structures and systems in place. But go to salescalloverhaul.com/letter. That is where our newsletter that we're launching is going to be. And I'm going to teach a mental model in each of the newsletters. And it might be TRIZ as applies to sales, or it might be the Eli Goldrat's theory of constraints as applied to a certain part of sales, or something like that. I'm going to teach a sales leadership element. I'm going to teach, well, it's going to be a lot of stuff, but that is where to come hang out. That's where we're building the community around that and the podcast. So please come join the newsletter and hang out with us there.
Thank you for that generous offer. And I want to make sure that you guys all really pay attention to one teeny little bit of a detail here. You don't need to learn what you already know. Learn things you don't know how to do. And from my experience, 95% of everybody who come to me have an issue with sales. It's a skill set. Tony Robbins always says that when people are failing at something, it's because they didn't learn the skill. So learn the skill of sales. All right, Jeremy, it was amazing to have you. Thank you so much for all this information. I can't wait to share this with everybody. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show.
It's been totally my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
And that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, this is your host, Beate Chelette, and goodbye. Thank you for listening to or watching the show. We are so excited that you're here, and we are very grateful for you. Now it's our turn to ask you for help. Please do share this episode with one other person that needs to hear what we were talking about today. If there's any question you have about business, please do reach out to us and let us know. And don't forget to schedule your complimentary Uncovery session at uncoverysession.com, where one of our business growth advisors will help you to figure out what your number one business growth blocker is in only 15 minutes. And that's it for us today. Until next time.